Hey there, thanks for joining. Welcome back to the Fanboy Cantina. In this video, we are talking about WandaVision Episode 8. And as always, we are joined by my good friend, Mr. C. Mr. C, how are you doing today?
Hey, everybody. Again, the weather's a little bit warmer compared to what it was last time. This Midwestern snow over here is on the melt, so that's doing good for my spirits and my environment. How are you, good sir?
Well, I'm on the West Coast, so I don't have those kinds of issues. It is manifest destiny outside. I am looking out back, and it is a bright, sunny day. It's a sunshine day out here. Yeah, so things are good. And for everybody watching, hope you are doing well as well. And in our format, we'll just I think we're going to make a change. We're just going to dive straight into the spoilers. So let's just get out of the way. Spoiler alert right now. If you have not seen episode 8 just yet, just pause the video, come back to us, and we'd love to chat with you later and post, as always, in the comments. We love hearing from folks. And so there's the spoiler alert tracking. So let's dive right in. This is previously on and a really different format than the previous several episodes or all the other episodes where we didn't get that sitcom beginning environment. It just goes right into the MCU, frankly. And let's shift straight away to how we start off the episode with SALEM 1693, and loved everything about this. You see Agatha being taken by these shadowy hooded figures to the stake. She is tied up, and the question is, are you a witch? And she said, yes, I'm a witch, which reveals in a turn, it's not the Salem witch trials, it's the coven of other witches there. And she is accused of using magical powers above her station, using the dark arts, and she is then attacked by the witches. One of them is her mother, and Agatha unleashes her power in a tremendous way from her body and takes the life force and magical energies away from the witches and ultimately from her mother. And that's how she gets the brooch that we see throughout the episodes. Mr. C, your thoughts and reactions to that whole entire sequence?
So as she's known for her brooch, as is a certain Indiana Jones known for his hat, she acquired the brooch in a bit of a different way than Indy acquired the hat. I'll say that back in, as we're ending in 3, back in 1983, I'd actually been over to Salem to the Witch Museum. And as a younger person at that time, that was a little bit scary, even some of the stuff in the Witch Museum. So keying in on the episode, I think the way they stated it was she was using things beyond her age and her station. So as I was watching it, I took that to mean her chronological age. But did they mean her chronological age, or did they mean her age as in her era, as in at their place and time in 1693? So just my little speculation off of the opening non-sitcom-y, non-theme songy change in their ways, in their presentation.
I love this entire sequence. It was it's a TV series here. It's the MCU brought to TV. The special effects, the drama, the amount of story that they compressed in such a short span of time, where we're seeing the back history of Agatha and how long she has been around. It was I love that entire sequence. It's just brilliantly crafted filmmaking right there. Yeah. So I think now we can move ahead where you don't know the rules. Don't you know the rules? And so that we go ahead to Agatha and Wanda in the basement, and there's the sequence where Agatha is showing the powers and Wanda is trying to read her mind, but don't you know the rules? There's the runes, the protection spells that are around. Don't you know how this works? We see that Agatha uses her magic to transform the fly into a bird and then into rabbit food. And what else from my notes here? She's trying. We understand now more about what are Agatha's motives. That she's trying to understand, how do you do it? How are you able to use your magic all the way out to the edges here, where they have their own complex storylines? How does this work? Your reactions to this sequence, Mr. C.
It's an inquisition, as there were inquisitions into, are you a witch or are you not a witch? Mm-hmm. But what is she going to do with this data as she aggregates or disaggregates, as she puts this story together? What is she going to do with what she learns? Mm-hmm. Is she just going to, I don't think she's just going to pour a cup of tea and be like, bravo. There has to be some, again, if you will, end game to Agatha's whole motivation, to her whole series of behaviors.
I skipped over the reveal about Pietro as Fietro, that it is not actually Pietro at all, because he's got a lot of holes in him. And how much of a jerk thing that is to say to Wanda in the moment. What do you think that actually means? So it's actually a possession spell that she was using. So it's somebody, presumably in the town of Westview, that it was manipulated in this way, yet somehow was also able to have those super speed powers of Quicksilver. Do we actually not get the multiverse here?
Well, what really happened, that's more of that's a Feige pay grade question, or that's a Paul Bettany, Elizabeth Olsen level question. But for the purposes of speculation, hey, so it could have still been a dimensional, a multiverse, teleportation, transportation, and then application of a possession spell. So she could have still plucked this guy from the Fox X-Men world, and but maybe she didn't. Maybe he was just another citizen of Westview, which is interesting. Then the police in the beginning said, well, Westview doesn't exist. You only know of Eastview. Mm-hmm. So that's another unresolved nugget of mystery. I'm still not ruling out Nightmare, because if we're going to look at the hair color on Nightmare, kind of a two-tone black and white, and mm-hmm. Fake Pietro's hair color, there's kind of a match. And then the color pattern for Nightmare just wore green, as did early Quicksilver wear green. So I'm not ruling out Nightmare. If I were I a betting man, which I'm not, I'd put my chips on Nightmare still.
Yeah, I think, definitely jury's still out on who is Fietro now. I like that. And whether it's somebody else from the MCU, not yet seen in the MCU, that is the ultimate big bad. I think that covered my notes on this. Oh, it is a question mark for me on why was it Evan Peters then in the role? If it was just some random guy or person in the town of Westview, why did they use Evan Peters? It could be that it was the turn for really us, that you knew that it wasn't Aaron Taylor Johnson from the MCU Quicksilver, but it was somebody else. So it could be just brilliant casting for us as the viewer, that it's this other person just in the role of Fietro, Fake Pietro.
Casting, storycraft, the building into the story because of the Fox X-Men universe. Just red herring, or it was Pietro all along. That we'll have to see.
That's great. And if you're watching now, or if you're watching later, post in the comments. We'd love to get thoughts and feedback. So now let's move ahead to the town of Sokovia, the country of Sokovia, and I right off the bat I got chills watching this sequence, but. To cover off what we see, it is the final moments that Wanda has with her parents. And it's we then get the explanation of why we are seeing these TV sitcoms, that it's a memory of her father selling these DVDs of old TV shows for presumably for money to keep the family afloat. And the last moments that she has is watching TV with her parents, the Dick Van Dyke Show, and specifically the Walnut episode. The explosion is terrible. We see the Stark bomb or missile ticking, which harkens back to the commercial that we saw in the very first episode of WandaVision, and we kind of knew that was the same, an analogy or the metaphor there. And she reaches out. She speaks in English, also in the sequence, and Agatha steps in and says, "Wait a minute! Did you use the probability hex to stop it?" And like, no. It was going to blow up. It was going to blow up, and we waited 2 days before we were rescued, before we knew that we were okay. I thought this was an incredible part, one of the most memorable parts of the episode. But your thoughts and reactions? Again,
in a literary, in a comic book, in a motion picture, in a television like venue, in any kind of storytelling. So here's some ambiguous or multi-interpretation possibility. My read is that she did a hex power as a youngster, which would be consistent with what they were calling her powers in her earliest iteration in the comics. But it's entirely possible that she's being sincere. She did a hex, but she didn't know she had hex power, so she never realized it or never thought it. That's possible. That's what I'm leaning towards, that she didn't know she had powers as a youngster.
Yeah, I think that's it, right? That's what Agnes or Agatha is uncovering in this. Really, over the stretch of the episode, it's an interrogation. It's an exploration of her past. It's almost like a psychology, a psychiatry session with Wanda, to go through her past, understand the multiple points of trauma. Agatha is kind of a jerk and making light of these moments, really, of not being as caring, I think, in these vignettes. With this entire sequence, it was really heartbreaking for me, because I think you think about trauma that people go through, particularly young in their lives when they're kids, and there's sometimes this before and after, right? Before and after the tragedy, and with young Wanda and her brother, they are just kids, right? And they are kids. They are enjoying life. They have a seemingly beautiful family, right? Household. And then all of that is disrupted. And that is the beginning of Wanda's new journey. And I thought it was really heartbreaking. And one thing, I just have another screen grab to flip up here. So here we see the various influences, I think, on her youth, and just the affinity for the older sitcoms as well as the more current. We didn't see a I Love Lucy episode necessarily, nor Who's the Boss, I think, is in that suitcase. But it was a really tragic sequence.
Just image-wise, looking at the I Love Lucy logo, there's a heart. And there will be a couple points for down in the conversation where just that basic heart symbol is presents itself, comes up as a relevant symbol.
Yeah. In Dan Murrell's episode 8 review, he went really deep in that. He referred to the Walnut episode that Wanda wants to see in the sequence, and I actually went back and watched that same episode on not coincidentally, that is available on Hulu, which is attached to Disney Plus. So I did watch that episode with the walnuts, and it's actually a really scary episode. I don't remember seeing that. I mean, I don't remember really Dick Van Dyke show that much in the reruns, but it's a scary episode where it is really a kind of a bad dream thing ultimately, and you hear Wanda refer to it at the end. At the end, it's all a bad dream, and she's going to wake up, and it's all a bad dream. And unfortunately, they don't wake up from this bad dream. It is this actual trauma. But it's a really scary episode where the other characters are these kind of zombie figures. It's really trippy, and I think leads actually very well into the vibe of WandaVision. There are really scary moments attached to it. So anything else before we hop to Strucker's lab?
Let's further down this yellow, not so yellow brick road into the Strucker's lab, cross the doorway, cross that threshold to another sight and sound dimension of Strucker, and let's see, what do we have?
Yeah, so we get into Strucker's lab, and Wanda acknowledges that she is a volunteer. She is going into the secure cell where she is exposed to Loki's staff. The other scientist says, nobody survived coming in direct contact, and click, turns off that feed. So Wanda does not hear that. And then we have this magical sequence where the stone removes itself from Loki's staff. Wanda has a vision of this figure that looks like what we know from the comic books as Scarlet Witch, and also looks like what Wanda was wearing just 2 episodes ago in the Halloween episode. She sees the reflection in her eyes, and within the lab, the scientists are wondering what exactly happened here, because there's no recorded footage of what happened. And we see Wanda staring into space, watching the Brady Bunch with the Kitty Carry-All Goes Missing episode, which I also did watch on Hulu. But before I get into that one, your thoughts and reactions on the Strucker sequence.
First, credit to you for digging into Dick Van Dyke and the Bradys.
I got a lot of time at night because I can't leave the house, quarantine, bad stuff outside. But back to you.
Just as you had referenced earlier. So, I mean, in putting the pieces together, this is the previously on episode. Mm-hmm. So now we're backtracking to wrap things up. We're looking back to be able to go forward then, and tying into the episode 1 commercial and then the episode 2 commercial. Yeah, here are these milestone moments, these hallmark events in Wanda's life, and again, Agatha is keying in on them. For what exact purpose, we'll soon know, or we'll soon know more. The way they said, acknowledged they were a volunteer, or conceded that they were a volunteer, like that. I mean, clearly there was desperation in a war-torn place for 2 twins who are orphans. So yeah, there's a high motivation for them, as Wanda stated directly. Yeah, we wanted to change the world. But the volunteerism, knowing that other people had not previously made it through, that's I'd say that's an impure use of volunteering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Agnes calls her out on it, that you're reacting to the trauma of your parents being killed, and so you join a anti-freedom terrorist organization. And she just says deadpan, well, we wanted to change the world. It is a disturbing sequence, and it kind of reminds you that she wasn't always the hero. She wasn't always the Avenger. She was a Hydra asset. And yeah, so it is kind of terrifying in that regard. I'm just looking at my notes here. Oh, just about the Kitty Carry-All episode. I didn't derive that many things from it. It's the episode where Kitty Carry-All, which is Cindy Brady's doll, goes missing, and then there's a whole accusation thing. There's a trial that happens about whether it was Bobby who really took it, or whether he's guilty or not. And then other stuff is found to be missing, and so wondering what all happens. And then ultimately, it's Tiger the dog. By the way, I loved watching these sitcoms because I haven't watched them in, I couldn't even tell you how long I've seen it. So it was like really reconnecting with an old friend. Do you remember anything about the Well, the Brady Bunch in particular, this one.
Well, the Brady Bunch in general served us well in our youth, and so yes,
Sure.
it wouldn't be at all bad to revisit. Now, I'll just say again, without having reviewed the episode that was referenced, just the idea of false accusations between siblings. So right there, so Bobby, and you could make the comparison between Bobby and Cindy and Pietro, or fake Pietro and Wanda, that there was some deception or misunderstanding or false accusation, and then the actual culprit was not who or what it seemed to be at first, but that Tiger, the dog, was the actual culprit. So again, just bridging that gap between the same themes that get expressed in different ways, from sitcom playfulness to now hardcore mystery elements within the serious layer and level of WandaVision.
Yeah, you're right. It could be that this is signaling the fake out that may be yet to come, that it's not one or the other, but it's a third party that you don't expect or you wouldn't have otherwise thought of that's involved here. Let's move ahead to what I think is probably among the best moments of the MCU, bar none. I want to be conscious of the recency effect. All of us just watched this episode a couple of days ago, or yesterday for that matter, and just a really powerful sequence. And what's wonderful about this entire episode, we don't really get to see Wanda for most of the MCU. Like, she has very little screen time. She is a tertiary, or really a secondary character for the vast majority of the MCU. I think I heard you only get maybe 20, 25 minutes of screen time from Wanda over X numbers of movies. So, obviously we're getting tons of time with Wanda, but this gives us a little bit more depth into her backstory here. And it also fills in just sort of that interaction that we get glimpses of with Wanda and Vision and the forging of their relationship. So she's speaking about grief, and so it's this whole sequence where she is talking about grief. She's talking about how it comes in waves. That initially her response is that the only thing that could make her heal is seeing her brother one more time, to see him back again. That's the only thing that could bring her comfort. But as they are continuing to talk, she still goes on further to say that this grief is coming in waves, that it is washing over me again and again, and that she feels like that she will ultimately drown from it. And Vision chimes in. Vision is not that old and is not even human, yet is learning and keying into these human emotions, and starts talking about that he has not loved anyone before, so he doesn't have that notion of grief, but has the profound, even though he is a synthezoid, has the most human comment in the MCU about what is grief if not love persevering. And there is so then the music sweeps up, and then there's the comedic break of watching the Malcolm in the Middle episode, and Agatha is starting to learn more about what is going on, but she still wants to know more. Tell me how you did. I have a theory. Reactions to this sequence, Mr. C.
So yeah, once we're in the hex, as of the beginning of episode 1, we're in a fabricated, Wanda-generated environment in response to her grief. So now, previously on, as we're working backwards in this timeline, going through these doors, stopping to view these hallmark moments, I'll say that a bit similar to the Ghosts of Christmas Past and Present and Future. Not to say that Wanda is a Scrooge-like character, but just the dynamic of revisiting different plot points and time points along the way is similar to what Dickens had put in for Scrooge. But look how honest and vulnerable and intricate and articulate her thoughts and her conversation with Vision. It's just as is anybody who's grieving. You wish for something, and she's saying out loud what that is. And at that time, there's no such implication, or there is no foreshadowing of, in the absence of getting what I need, I'm going to establish an alternate sitcom life or environment. So again, credit to the writing staff, credit to the acting squad, and this is just, again, that they traverse between the sitcom style and action blockbuster style and raw emotional time. Like how many other things, movie stories in whichever format, do we get to see the more time, or see some more time devoted towards like a sense of realism within all this fantasy? Here's such a sense of realism. So often it's somebody takes an injury and they keep on going, or after difficult things happen, it's not really discussed. But so in contrast, earlier on when Iron Man was out with Tony Stark, was out in space for that extended time, and then when he finally got back to Earth, they were showing he was all shaky. He had showing the difficulty of his isolation and his travel and everything. So credit to Marvel for mixing in these pieces, these quieter moments of realism in with all the other material and multiple genre work that they do.
Yeah, building on what you said with Iron Man, it's PTSD that he is recovering from, and his reaction to it. He's appreciating his life with his family, but there's underlying sadness. There's remorse about his father, and that, by that time in Infinity War, he knows how he was killed by the Winter Soldier, but then also seeing the kid Peter Parker die in his arms, and that entire journey. Yeah, it's a tremendous amount of grief and trauma that he is recovering from. In this case, with WandaVision, it's almost like an examination of how yet another character, or human beings in general, can process grief. You may not create a fake world all around you, but it's these different ways of accepting and understanding and processing grief. Captain Monica Rambeau speaks about her own grief and speaks a bit about it as her truth. And in this episode, Agnes is saying, you are not confronting, Wanda, your truth here, that you are not confronting your own truth. I think it's just a brilliantly crafted episode, and this whole thing, this quote will stay with people for ages here, and just what a wonderful gift, especially not to get too philosophical about it, but 2020 sucked for many people, and for that matter, outside of 2020, people go through grief, people go through loss. You live long enough, you get to see friends and family die, and it's traumatic. So as a piece of wisdom to impart on us as a viewer, it's tremendous. And just one more thing, as you referred to the other superhero movies, it's all this kind of other macho stuff, and even Captain Rogers says, if you get killed, walk it off. You're not walking this one off. This one needs to be processed. Let's move ahead then to Sword headquarters, and we get to see the badass Wanda Maximoff storming into the Sword headquarters. She bursts the doors open. She is let in, I guess, but she bursts the door open herself. There is a god-awful exchange between Director Hayward and Wanda. Truly, what a manipulative bastard he is. And he is deliberate and calculated in his word choice. He is at first complimentary. It's an honor to meet you, Wanda Maximoff. Refers to her loved one as, oh, so you want to see the Vision. and then escorts her to the window where she looks down and sees, ooh, I thought I had a screenshot of it, but I don't. But she sees her Vision dismantled on multiple tables and all of these parts. People with blunt instruments sawing off pieces, taking apart the arms. What is this? Why are you showing me this? And he says, because you wanted to see it. No doubt that she did not want to see that, or didn't expect to see that, but you wanted to see it. So he is deliberate in his word choice of the Vision, and then, is starting to influence, trying to plant ideas in her head, really, to play these psychological games that, you have the power to bring him online, to bring him back online. And that is clearly pushing Wanda over the edge. She breaks the glass and bursts in and spends the time with Vision, puts her hand on Vision's head and says, I can't feel you. I can't feel you. And then leaves. So we also see that what Director Hayward said of Wanda stealing Vision's body is not true at all. She just leaves.
That man's a liar. He's no good. He is the snake of all snakes. At least Thanos was sincere and honest about, I'm coming to do a destruction like you've never seen before. But this guy is the manipulator, the deceiver. Wow, I just don't like this guy.
Terrible.
Okay, so predictions or not prediction, but but what do I really hope? Now, yeah, it would be very fitting for if not his demise, for his put in his box, whatever his box may be, his time out, his containment, his reduction of power, it would be very fitting for Wanda to bring that about to him. But I'm kind of hoping that Jimmy Woo can come around and just give this director a little, Monica, I get, okay, line everybody up. Who's going to take a shot at this director?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I don't like this guy.
What an awful soul he is. Yeah, it's really, again, credit to the MCU and its evolution in writing. Like if you think back to, say, the Hulk. Actually, I don't know what you call it. Is it Hulk or Incredible Hulk? The one with Edward Norton in it, which is kind of swept under the rug. But you got the general there. It's kind of like a cookie cutter thing, really. It's the guy who's trying to tap into Bruce Banner's power, and how do we how do we create a whole bunch of Hulks, really? How do we get access to that power? How does it all work? And turn it into a weapon. You get that kind of more down the middle character, and now you've got one that here where dude is really a snake in the grass, and just the word choice and kind of, I'll just say it, misogynistic manipulation, really slimy, but to their credit, again, to the writers, brilliantly crafted. I can't say I love the sequence, but in terms of craftsmanship, it's just brilliant. And I'm really kicking myself for not having that screenshot of the dismantled Vision. But wow, it was awful to watch, that entire bit. Let's move ahead here to the town of Westview. So Wanda gets in her car, and she looks down and she sees this letter on the chair, and the letter is open. She's looking at it, and then she drives off to the town of Westview. And so much like what we saw from Endgame of the city of San Francisco, which has fallen into disrepair as Scott Lang is driving around the San Francisco, the same thing has happened to the town of Westview, where it does seem to be very distressed, very much in disrepair. A lot of glum faces throughout the town of Westview. We see the same characters that she's driving by. Those same characters that she drives by are the same characters that we see earlier in the WandaVision series. and that brings her to this vacant lot. And within that, it's interesting looking at this this shell of a property compared to all of the other built houses around it. It's been 5 years, so questions on that. And then now we see what was actually in the letter, which was this property deed, and it's awarded to Wanda Maximoff and the Vision, and that unleashes this this really tragic sequence where the powers are coming not just from her hands, as we've seen in all of the other episodes before, all of the other interactions that we've seen with Wanda, is coming from her heart. And so the fire of this magic, this power is coming from her that builds the house all around. And then ultimately in this act, it brings Vision to life. And the contrast between the red magic of her own and the same color palette of the Mind Stone of yellow bringing Vision to life. And actually, I think we'll maybe I'll pause it there, but it goes then into black and white to Wanda, to the expression of Wanda, and the two of them are going to now watch TV, kind of the soothing thing that she has gone through, that she has done, whether with her family or in the Sokovian, in the Baron Strucker lab. She's remembering her happiest memories of Dick Van Dyke. All right. So I've said a lot here. Mr. C.
Jump from just that's a basic, you don't have to have a behavioral science degree of any kind to know that in your adulthood, you look to replicate certain comforts and patterns and emotions, specific emotions that came to you in your early childhood. So there she is. Now working backwards from your most recent to the previous commentary. So now we have the I Love Lucy heart. We have the Vision drew the little heart. We had the heart on the calendar in episode 1, which was a mysterious heart. How did that heart get on the calendar? Oh, the hearts are coming for dinner. So yeah, her, and you're saying here it's the first time we're seeing the power emanate from her core or from her heart. So that's, again, this is a release of grief, a manifestation through her special powers of love and grief. So right back to Vision's quote about that grief is a manifestation and expression of love and persevering. And so here she is in this place by herself now, and she's trying to persevere. I'll say this, similar to what happens in comics. Like, okay, so right, I'm not seeing, a Falcon or a Winter Soldier or an Ant-Man or a War Machine or any other characters around. So very often in comics, in a solo title where it's just a one character or two characters, you think, oh, well, if they'd go back to their group of other superpowered allies, then they could have a resolution. So yeah, I don't see any, but to drive the plot in those individual comics, they don't in every single one go back to their group. That's what individual adventures are. So here she is in the WandaVision show, not connecting with any of the other Avengers team. It was interesting to me that it's at Sword. It's not at Stark Tech or anywhere else where Vision was being housed. And in case we didn't say it clearly enough earlier, let me just go back to that director is a liar. Body out. But now that sets up for what we had previously on Fanboy Cantina, where we commented about, is Vision an animated puppet or not? So yeah, the red herring took me, at least in that fake out direction. So no, this Vision with whom she's been spending time is just created through her powers and her will and her expression of love and grief. And so where do we go from there into next week? It's such a good setup. Yeah. With this, I don't think I would win a limbo contest with Wanda Maximoff or Elizabeth Olsen. That's some really impressive ab work going on right there. I can't do that.
I think there's a lot of questions out there. Actually, I'm going to move us ahead then, if it's all right, because before I get to my comment, or it should flow okay. So we, in this confrontation with at Westview, it now shifts out. Agatha has realized how this all works, and she is using this. She realizes you are using chaos magic. You are not supposed to actually exist. You're a myth, because that makes you the Scarlet Witch. So before getting into that whole sequence, to try to transition to it, I think the question is, what is actually happening? Are the kids real? With Agnes, with Agatha, she is saying, that you're children. There's a tone in that. The vision, that these are really just figments of her magic, that they are just manifestations of Wanda Maximoff's actual magical powers, of her chaos magic powers, which then raises the question of, or may help to explain, why was Vision not able to survive outside of the hex, right? Because he gets dismantled, you see the parts flying back into the hex. And so if that's true, then does that not mean that Vision is not real in this case? But then also the kids are not real in this case, and they will not survive outside of the hex. I know that, there's been much speculation that this is the introduction of the Young Avengers, and I still believe that, but I'm not so sure that the conclusion of this is that everybody's still alive.
Yeah, bracing myself for the possibility that Vision won't, at the conclusion of episode 9, at least for some amount of time, won't be a living, active character. But yeah, within the storyline, it calls the question the extent of Wanda's power. Or clearly from the previous attempt, once Vision was outside the border of the hex, then he ceased to exist. Mm-hmm. So that may well imply that the same will hold true for the children. If Agatha is there a possibility that she's not 100% against Wanda, but she's in the role of a harsh coach or mentor or tough as nails guide? Mm-hmm. Is it possible that she would loan, if you will, some magic to keep Vision and the boys alive? Maybe not. Interesting in the visual, if we can go back. So now Agatha is floating in the same way that her mother was floating from the opening shot, and now she's telling Wanda the same things that Agatha's mother was telling Agatha back in 1693, that this chaos magic which you seem to be making use of, that's not for you to do, that shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. I'm just staging wise here. I believe a few minutes before this. So right, we also received the information that through the exposition that your magic won't work in here in my scary witch basement. So then if you're Agatha, then why go outside the scary witch basement? Because now they're out in the street. So that's true. So as a strategy, that's curious. If you're Agatha and you're setting the stage for a battle, then why not be on your advantageous grounds? So I'm not sure what is real. It's a curiosity which way it's going to come together. The fact that the kids are both like this, I was thinking, wow, just kid actor wise, was it just straight CGI, or did you put some kind of thin, easily breakable rope around the kid? Yeah. The fact that, I think that's easier if you're telling the kids, the rope is going to be in your hands versus around your neck, or just that gives me some kind of comfort, just production wise.
Yeah. You really were. From the comics, there is much of the death of the two kids. We talked about it last episode, last time we got together. I'm on pins and needles. Is that going to be what we see? Because we know from Tiana Paris's comments about the series, that we can expect an epic and incredibly sad ending. That is her description of it. She does describe that in just rereading the article. It was done before the final 3 episodes were made available. So we've got 1 episode to go, and definitely this one was sad. I don't know if it was incredibly sad. It's certainly getting us a lens into the tragedy of Wanda Maximoff. But with this thing dangling out there that is going to be incredibly sad as a word choice, I'm worried. I am worried about what we may be experiencing in this show. And how great in terms of storytelling that this is how we get the nickname. Director Hayward kind of makes light of it. Is there no snappy nickname for Wanda Maximoff? No gimmick. And so here she receives the mantle of Scarlet Witch, or she already had the mantle of the Scarlet Witch. That is just who she is. Really enjoyed this entire sequence.
That was a good callback and foreshadowing sequence for him to articulate that during that meeting before we saw his true colors. And I'll say it's even a touch similar to, as is in the comics, their famous battle cry or rallying cry, Avengers Assemble.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, not yet. Here's a few movies. Here's a few years before they actually in film in the movie say the words Avengers Assemble. So it was a bit similar to that same slow burn build of bringing everything together. So there's some consistent thought process and strategy, and from the real director's chair, not the Agatha director's chair, but from the desk of Feige, there's a lot of good stuff coming off of that desk. Yeah.
To have planted the seeds, or to have paid it off in this way, it just brilliant stuff. And so that brings us then to anything else before we get to the end credit?
I'm good. Let roll.
All right. So then we get to Vision the White, to do a Lord of the Rings reference there. And we understand then that that Director Hayward, over the course of this episode, we've now learned that Director Hayward was lying, that Wanda did not steal the body. So that means that Director Hayward still has the body. They took the energy from that drone, which kind of didn't make sense of how the magic was still hovering in there, right, when she chucked it back. And he uses that power to bring us some double vision, to bring us that double vision. And so now we get to see Vision the White come online. His eyes open with these crystalline kind of lenses on them. He looks at his hand, and that is the end of the episode.
And let's key in on the forehead there. There's clearly not an Infinity Stone, as there should be an Infinity Stone, but we have some different triangular shape, light up pattern going on there. So we'll have to see at some point later on what's up with that, or how did they, what's the significance of the pyramid shape at the center of his forehead.
Yeah. When he's looking at his hand, it was reminding me, and so I actually, Disney Plus is trying to force us to watch Age of Ultron every freaking week. And so then I did not watch the whole thing, but I started flipping through it just to look for a scene. I was having flashbacks of a couple of sorts. One is, actually from WandaVision, where Vision is, when he's outside of the hex, he's watching himself disintegrate. He's watching his hand disintegrate. So when he's looking at his hand, I was wondering, who is actually in this shell of a body? Is it still Vision? And maybe he's remembering what had just happened to this other form of himself, looking at his hand and seeing, oh yeah, my hand is there. Or is it actually what I remember from like the trailers of Avengers Age of Ultron, where there's no strings on me? that it's Ultron making the Pinocchio puppetry reference.
I would not be surprised if James Spader has a voiceover over what this white vision for what this while he's speaking. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Spader voiceover. It's all kind of scary, that image. That's very Frankenstein. That's man. Let's and what power level is he going to have? Like, you know, does the director think he is going? Does the director think he's the puppet master? But in fact, this white vision is going to break free of his strings. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I don't know how it works, right? So what does it actually mean? If Vision in previous, before everything up to Infinity War, had powers because of the Mind Stone in his head, then now in this other form without it, what powers does Vision the White actually have, or Gray Vision actually have? It's presumably not the same. Is he able to phase through things? Is that how it works? Also, where is the AI? What is the gray matter of Gray Vision? What is the brain that's powering it? Vision knows that he is himself, because he talks about it in last week's episode. He's the mixture of an AI of Jarvis and the corporeal form of Ultron, which is a genocide killing weapon machine. So who is actually in this? What is this? Could there be actually unintended consequences of reanimating this body?
Well, Frankenstein spoilers, let me tell you. Once the Frankenstein monster realized he was reanimated from the dead, he didn't have the best reaction. That was a little bit traumatic for him. So, I mean, and I don't want to overdo puns on Snap, but that could well be setting up for this vision too, of the double visions. Ooh, that double vision.
Yeah.
Could be setting up for this vision to snap. I really hope it's not like the director's brain patterns in some kind of way. We're going foreigner. I'm going to take a slightly different, a little Men at Work quote there. The director may be an idiot, but indeed he is no fool. So maybe the director's thinking, yeah, let me get my brain in this thing. And oh, look at all the things I'm going to be able to do on my agenda. Episode 9, come on to us and let's see what's going.
Yeah. Let's talk about episode 9. Well, I guess we didn't really talk about the whole chaos magic versus order magic. I did look a little bit on Marvel fandom for back history, but I didn't get that far. I understand there is the two sides. There's chaos magic and order magic, and perhaps Doctor Strange is the order magic, and hence his magic looks different in the MCU versus the form of Wanda's powers and how it's rendered. But we've got one episode left. I know on the Twitterverse, people have said for the last 2 episodes, all of them are supposed to be an hour long. None of these have been an hour long. So if the previous experiences are the same, they got a lot to figure out over the next 30, 40 minutes, maybe it's a little longer. I don't know if it's an hour or much more than that. There's a lot of story to cover.
I expect a very packed, densely packed episode for the big wrap up, and but knowing that it's a setup for the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I mean, clearly there has to still be some carrot farther out on the string than what will be able to be in our clutches. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I mean, sure, sell me a ticket for Doctor Strange, or put me figuratively or literally in the theater, depending on how quarantine things are working out at that time. But yeah, they as the MCU continued from the very first Iron Man to stack and build, here we are still going. As far as chaos magic versus order magic, I don't have that much knowledge that I can but just observationally, like if we're going to make 2 columns, one for a chaos side and one for an order magic side, just the colors, the configuration, the expression, and as yet, like in the comics, Doctor Strange is well noted for his very specific incantations for the words he uses to generate his spells. And in the movie, I believe there were 0 incantations. I believe it was all thought and hand sequencing to bring about the spells. So clearly, here's Agatha using incantations to bring about her spells. So there's definitely different types of magic in operation. And at this time, I can only observe and compile more pieces to try to have an understanding of how those magics are different from one another.
Yeah. You're right. It may be that some of these stories will not be wrapped up by the end of the series. And exactly, they need to give us maybe some kernels that will lead us into the next Doctor Strange film. But there's still, like, within the series, all kinds of dangling things. Like, why was Agent Wu there in the first place? It was because of the missing person, right? The missing person that was under witness protection. Well, we don't know who that is still. Even in last week's episode, we've got Captain Rambeau, who's been apparently taken under the spell of Agatha. And so that needs to be wrapped up. We don't fully understand how Fietro is working, or maybe is that the witness then? It's just sort of this weird coincidence that the one person that Agatha had possessed is the same person that was under witness protection. That would be kind of odd coincidence, but what was that? For that matter, was the deed actually from Vision? Like, there's something that's kind of screwy about this thing, where when would Vision have bought this in the first place? Right? Because during Infinity War, they are on the run. They're in Europe, and they're clearly forging a relationship. But when would he have bought this? And then why in the town of Westview? So the town of Westview could have just fallen into disrepair, like I was saying about the town of the city of San Francisco. So maybe it was a nicer looking place. Maybe there was actually a house as opposed to a vacant lot. But I don't fully understand when would that have taken place and why, much less some town in New Jersey. No disrespect in New Jersey, but why would that have happened? So there's a lot of story elements within the series to be figured out. In addition to, are the kids going to be alive? And is the Vision going to be alive? Any predictions that you have about how this is going to end?
Good question. I'll just say, let me say, in the glare, try to declare
the one shot.
Traditionally, in the comics, that is where Vision and Scarlet Witch set up not their just apartment, but their first home together. When exactly? I mean, like clue-wise, we can't right now, but we could try to blow up the image and see if there were actual dates on which those documents were signed or not.
I looked and I couldn't find the dates. I zoomed in. I was all nerdy geeking out about it. I did not find the dates.
Very good Scooby magnifying lens. Very good Sherlock Holmes use of the visual expansion. I mean, well, sometime before he met his demise at the hands of Thanos. So sometime before the Infinity War was set in motion. So again, as they go forward, they've given themselves room or created room for them to come back and fill in the gaps, as is the case in many forms of storytelling. There can always be gaps that get filled in.
Yeah, they don't have to answer all the questions, but at least we can expect, because we see it in the trailers for the series, that eventually Wanda and Vision team up and let's defend our home. So I assume, unless it's a bit of fakery there, that is something that we'll specifically see in this final episode. I don't know if I believe that there is a 10th. Like, the whole predictions on that these are all going to be an hour long have been wrong, and also, for that matter, the Oh, there was a bunch of things on Twitter because in the ads they were saying that Marvel is saying there's only 2 episodes left, and they're showing the promo for the 8th episode. So people are thinking, oh, that means there's 10 episodes. And there was some posts that eventually got taken down that said 1 through 10. But I don't know if I actually.
Well, that's the thing about speculations and predictions. Sometimes you'll land on the bullseye. Other times you will be in the outer rim of the target, and sometimes the dart will miss the target altogether. So then let me just throw out some possible to try to answer your question more directly.
Yeah.
Predictions in this big battle scene, in this grand resolution battle that we're going to see as the trailer indicated for 9. So maybe it'll be a 2-sided battle, Wanda and her vision in alignment against clearly the director and the white vision, or the traditional body of Vision. Now, will it be just 2-sided, or will there be a third side? I figure we can put Captain Rambeau, Photon, on the same side as Wanda and Vision, and I think we can put Jimmy Woo and Darcy into their camp also. But which way will Agatha go? So the same thing, is she being a harsh master, or is she trying to bring about, Wanda's destruction? So which side of the battle will Agatha be on, or will she be on her own side, and it'll be a 3-way, a 3-party battle? That'll be very that's I can't wait to see them resolve how the battle's going to end.
Yeah, and there's still these dangling things out there, right? So this was from TV Line that Elizabeth Olsen set the expectation of a Luke Skywalker type of moment, so some sort of surprise figure, and that, by using the Luke Skywalker analogy, we assume that is a hero of some kind, but it also could be a villain of some kind that we don't know. And we created this video that you can see on our YouTube channel. There is this new WandaVision ad, and in the background there's this figure that you can see. And in that video, I thought it was good to have this discussion. And my apologies for the person who wrote in who had additional thought. When I looked at this, I see a helmet. I see a helmet of some kind. And, so I see that black part at the top as like a face shield. And at the bottom, it seems like it's like a helmet, but it's not the beekeeper. But the person who wrote in says they see a hoodie, or not a hoodie, a shadowy figure, and they're wearing a hood over them, and their head is facing down. And and so now that they have written, and thank you again, whoever submitted that, I can see that too. So there's still like a character that we have yet to see in WandaVision, yet to come, I think.
Prediction, speculation. Let's go right to Doctor Strange, right? And again, there's so many possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
We know we're setting up for the second Doctor Strange movie. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be a surprise if Doctor Strange showed up. The Skywalker level, so that's going to, is it just Spader's vocals?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Robert Downey Jr.? Is it Chris Evans? There's so many possibilities. I'll put Doctor Strange at the top of the list.
All right. Anything else? Yeah. No, I think I suspect it's Doctor Strange, because that would be a surprise, and how awesome would that be? Love the battle in Infinity War in particular, where it's just Doctor Strange unleashed. And so to have something like that in the MCU here again in the WandaVision would be fabulous. Any closing thoughts before we end here?
8 of 9. Let's come to the denouement. Let's see the resolution manifest itself. Again, as is noted, we should expect some downside in the ending. Empire Strike Back had some down material toward the ending, and clearly that was, given a lighter, heroic, positive resolution as the story continued. So as rough as it gets, maybe it's darkest before it's dawn. Maybe we have to see some bad stuff come in episode 9, but let's let's get there, and look forward to both watching it and coming back next week to have this conversation to discuss.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for me, this was a fantastic episode. I think the plot advanced a lot. I've seen the comments in Twitter where some people don't feel like it did. I feel like we learned a tremendous amount, and it just leads us great. It gives us a great lead into the finale of the WandaVision series. I'm looking forward to it. I think maybe with the introduction of Vision the White, that is the physical form that may allow Vision to infuse himself and now have a life again in the MCU. I think that could happen, but I have to believe that something tragic is also going to be coming at us. And a lot of unanswered questions to be crammed in here. So, hey, thank you everybody for watching. Thanks for tuning in. As always, please post in the comments your reactions, your thoughts on the episode. What do you expect to see happen? And follow us on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram at the Fanboy Cantina. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. This has been the Fanboy Cantina. Thanks.
Catch you next time, good people.
Yeah.